The incline dumbbell curl is my all-time favorite exercise to perform for the biceps with a dumbbell. In fact, if you said I could only perform one biceps exercise with dumbbells for the rest of my life, that would be this exercise. So to perform these efficiently, there are a couple things we want to keep in mind. Number one is setting our bench height correctly. Generally, 2 notches up on an incline bench will be the sweet spot for most folks. If you go too low, you end up not getting that shoulder extension that you need, and then also it just doesn't give you the best biceps bias. So having this is a little bit better. You could bring that bench up a little bit, but then at that point you're just kind of doing like seated dumbbell curls. And if you really want that lengthened or eccentric bias with this lengthened bicep position, having this like in between, say like 45-degree angle is the best. And so now as you perform this exercise, you're gonna let the dumbbells hang to the side of the body. Now something big here that I like to think about is at the bottom, this kind of helps me cue when I'm at a full extended position, is at the bottom, I wanna actually squeeze my triceps. And that'll actually help you feel a little bit of that lengthened position tension with the bicep. Now as you curl, you wanna think about keeping the humerus or the upper arm relatively fixed. So as we curl, we're keeping that arm relatively fixed and we're making the biceps do that work against gravity. So instead of thinking curling these up, because that will happen as you get more tired, we want to try to prevent that early on in the set. So keep that elbow relatively fixed, rotate around that joint, curl, 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 squeeze at the top, and then slowly lower, keeping that same fixed arm position, because with this exercise, the reason they are so freaking awesome is when we are going through the eccentric and lowering portion here, we are going to have a ton of stress on the biceps, going through a full lengthened position. So in the context of hypertrophy, we know that getting deeper ranges of motion and putting more stress on the muscles at lengthened positions can generally lead to more hypertrophy, and that's why I love this exercise. It's not only phenomenal from a hypertrophy standpoint, but because we're working that nice lengthened position, it can also be really great on helping us get more range of motion with our shoulders, our arms, but also help build up the integrity of our joints. So all the tendons and all that tissue around the elbow, the wrist, the shoulder even, we're gonna have a nice constant stress there and a nice lengthened position on all of that. So I briefly talked about some mistakes already that you could perform with these, having the bench too low, having the bench too high, and also swaying the arms. But a couple of things to think about with this exercise, and this is more of just like my coaching critique versus like true mistakes, is as you're working through these, again, number one, flexing the triceps at the bottom, and then as you curl up, making a really strong point to flex the biceps fully at the top. Make those biceps do the work. And yes, this is where I like to use that pithy term, mind-muscle connection. I think there is some merit there of thinking, okay, bicep, we're doing the lifting here, we're rotating around that joint, squeeze, 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 squeeze at the top, and then lower nice and slow. The second tip or kind of mistake or critique, I guess you could say, is making sure you're working with a consistent tempo throughout this exercise. Because we're working through this nice lengthened position, this is not a good exercise to rush. So we don't want to be performing these like this. We're gonna get lax with our arm position. We're not gonna get that nice and lengthened bicep bias that we want, because if we keep our arms fixed, we can focus on allowing those biceps to really resist gravity here and work around that elbow joint. And then my third critique here is just being very conscious of your wrist position. Sometimes I'll see lifters start to curl their wrists in like this and flex them in, and that could take away from that moment arm and take away from some of that tension we can put in the biceps. If we bring that dumbbell closer to that elbow, we're not gonna have as much tension. So making sure that our wrists are just staying relatively flush is a good move to make sure we're getting the most out of this exercise regarding our biceps involvement. So if you're a masochist like me and you want to level these up a little bit and make them a little bit more difficult, 2 things that I love to program for clients and myself is, number one, if I want to get a little bit more of a forearm bias and get more brachioradialis here, and brachialis, what I'll actually do is I'll start here at the bottom, I'll curl up, turn the top, and then slowly lower. So call this a modified Zotman, performed with an incline dumbbell curl. It's fucked up. At the bottom then, you could turn back out, get that nice rotation with the forearm muscle, squeeze that tricep, and then work back through that range of motion. At the top, curl it back out, and again, performing that nice Zotman-like eccentric position here. Again, we want to keep those arms relatively fixed. Another way you can level these up is by doing pauses. So as you curl up, think halfway, pause, curl, 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 curl. At the top, as I get freaking killed by these, slowly lower, pause right there where that tension is at the highest, and then slowly lower, controlling that range of motion. Those two methods, I'm telling you, will kill you. If you want to do the Zotman kind of variation where we're curling and rotating at the top here, that's going to be fantastic for hitting this beefy forearm muscle there. So as you can see, that's going to be nice and pumped. And then if you want to get a little bit more tension on that bicep and really train the tissues of that elbow joint, doing that pause can be a fantastic variation. If you program these for yourself right now, let me know how you program them. I'll typically put them deeper into my arm workouts or as a core movement and make them kind of my focal point or a finisher. So one of those two extremes, that's how I'll usually use these. But let me know how you like to use them. And if you have additional questions on the incline dumbbell curl, drop a comment down below. Let me know whatever you have. But as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, drop a subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one.